This tape has been copyrighted. Any duplication or reproduction without written consent is prohibited.
Thank you. Wow. It's pretty amazing. You know what? It's amazing that you can be part of something that gives you an opportunity to, really realize your dreams in your life, and then to be able to affect other people in a significant way, and to feel good about it as you're doing it. And even when you've done well, that there's still other mountains to climb, and you can really keep going forward. I mean, there's really no end in sight, and you can continue to improve. I mean, there's nothing, I've said this many times, I'm kind of, right now, I'm at a stage, I've been financially independent since I'm 32 years old. I have one of the things that when I first got in the business, I referred to that where I wanted to take some time off for 3 hours, really. I asked for 3 hours off to go to my son Dak's 5th birthday, and my boss said no. He just said no, and I just couldn't believe that another human being could have the power to say no to me to spend 3 hours with my family on my son's birthday. I just went, how could this be? This is ridiculous. I'm not a child. It just drove me out of my mind, and I made a decision right there that day. Like Jan said, I think he quit. I quit mentally right there. I made a decision right that it was a Friday afternoon. I made a decision right then that I would never, ever, ever again work for someone as long as I lived, and I would never be in a position that I had to ask another man or woman for anything, period. I made that decision. I didn't care if I had to work 10, 12, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was no possible way I was ever going to put myself in that humiliating position again. That was a decision. So I think we all have defining moments. I don't know what yours is, but that was mine. And some of us, when we have those defining moments, we give up. And some of us, we get pissed off, and we go do something. I think you should get pissed off and go do something. I'll tell you, that was the very best thing that ever happened to me in my life, that incident. And as a result, changed my whole life, and it's changed a lot of other people's lives as well, along the way. So I think there's nothing more important than freedom. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be fighting, clawing, scratching, every day to try to be free, to be really free. And you cannot be free until you're financially independent. You may think, well, I have a pretty good job, things are going pretty good, but I'm telling you, if you're not financially independent, you are not free, and you're kidding yourself. And what does that mean? Well, for me, when I first started, I think you should do this. This is the plan that Jan and I entered into that way on the way home from the retreat. It was July of 1984, on that way home from the retreat, because you're going to leave here in about 45 minutes or so, half hour, okay? And you're going to be thinking about all these things that happened this weekend and all the things that touched you in whatever way. And the reason we have a varied group of speakers is because everybody gets affected by somebody different, right? And so I made a decision right there is I wanted to be free. And I figured out what is freedom to me. At that point, I was making about $50,000 a year. And I had a house payment about $1,200 a month, and my bills were probably amounted to maybe $3,500 a month or something like that, okay? And I figured if I could have $50,000 a year coming in without me working for it, then I would be financially independent. That, for me, at that point in my life, was financial independence. So I figured, what do I need to do to get there? I figured I needed to accumulate $500,000 in cash at a reasonably 10% rate of return. Would give me $50,000 a year, and on the current standard of living, if I didn't increase my standard of living, I would be free, and I could get out from under the thumb, like Art used to say, of a boss for the rest of my life. And every single thing I did from that point was directed and geared towards trying to build a business that would provide enough cash flow above and beyond what I needed to live on, so so that I could save and invest so I could accumulate my $500,000. That was the reason I got in. It wasn't to save the world or whatever. It was to get free. And so as I was out there recruiting and talking to people and making phone calls and dropping by, and when I didn't have any appointments, I would drop by people's homes and call referrals and do all the things most of you are not doing right now. I never looked at rejection as an issue. I looked at what I was trying to accomplish. I never took rejection personally. I never looked at it like, oh, I'm a loser, I can't hire anybody, nobody wants to do business with me. I looked at it like, well, there's ratios, right? You got to talk to so many people to get so many people involved, and so many people involved and of those people that do get involved, so many people will do something, and I just got to keep them coming in so that I can take advantage of the law of numbers, right? The ratios. That's all I did. So if I could give you an advice, I would get that number. What is your freedom number? I don't know what you make right now. I don't know what your situation is, but you know what it is, so you should figure that out. You should have that number. And I think, because before you can really help anybody else, you got to get free. Until you're free, you can't help anybody else be free. So you've got to be focused on that. I think that's what you got to be focused on. A lot of you want to save the world, but you ain't saving yourself yet. And you got to do that first. You got to have a plan to do that. You've got plenty of resources. You've got enough information and stuff on that CD-ROM that you wouldn't need another thing if you actually did what those people are doing. So I just read a book. I'm reading a book, actually, and it's the gentleman is Phil McGraw. It's called Life Strategies. If any of you watch Oprah, he's on Oprah. He does relationship stuff as well. This book isn't about relationships. It's about life strategies, about becoming successful. And when I read this book, I was reading, I go, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did all these things. It's like I wrote the book, you know? And I said, this is perfect, because he put it in a fashion that made sense. So I wanted to share it with you, because I think a lot of times, one of the things that I see, most people go through their lives and they actually think that they're where they're at because of some outside force. Jim could use the excuse, my father was an alcoholic and he used to beat me, right? That could be a reason, right? Or I'm Mexican, or I'm black. I think most people are immature. I think most 40-year-olds walking around today are completely immature. They don't take responsibility for themselves. And I think you've got to grow up. You're exactly where you've chosen to be, exactly. And one of the problems is not admitting that. It's kind of like if you're an alcoholic. Until you admit you're an alcoholic, you really can't work towards not being one. A lot of people don't like the way I talk because I'm very direct. My wife always says, how do you do that? You talk to people like that. Why do you say those things? Aren't they going to be mad at you? Hey, listen, I'm more concerned with you being successful than you liking me right now. I'm fine. I like me. That's good enough for me right now, okay? You need to like you. And I believe it's better to be honest with people and tell them what they need to know, because if you really love somebody, so like think about your children, right? I am so brutally honest with my children because I really, really love my children. So I tell them exactly what they need to hear, not what I think they want to hear, right? And so do you, I bet, right? You're very honest with your kids because you love them. Well, I think you should be that way. I think you should love everybody. And the way you show it is by being honest with people and telling what they need. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. Very few people, even when you're honest with them, still don't do it. But that's not your responsibility. You're not responsible for the person next to you. You're not responsible for anybody but you. I'm not responsible for you. All I can do is give you my experience and hopefully, be a good example. The rest really is up to you. When Carl and Jim were saying, about not having an expectation, I want to explain what I meant when I said that, because I think this is really important for a lot of you. A lot of you are unhappy right now because you have expectations about what people should be towards you. You have an expectation about the way things should be. And that's the source of all of your unhappiness. It really is. See, think of it like this. If you didn't have any expectation about what other people did, you would never be upset about what anybody did, right? The reason you get upset is you have an expectation. The answer to not being frustrated and upset with people is not to have an expectation. I have never had an expectation of anybody. I really haven't. Now, I have an expectation that the group's going to do well because the law of numbers says that if I have a group of 1,600 people, there's a certain number of that 1,600 that are going to do it. They're going to go for it, okay? And so I don't have an expectation of individuals. So if Chris decides he doesn't want to work hard, right, for whatever reason, I have no expectation that he's going to work hard. His reputation says he's going to, but you never know, right? He might say, I'm doing pretty well right now. I'm happy with where I'm at. I ain't doing it anymore. And if he does that, I'm okay with that because I have no expectation either way. I just want him to do more because I know what's available for him and Susan. If they do more, if they don't choose that, that's okay. I already chose it. Make sense? He says he'll be there. We'll see. I believe him. I believe he's got credibility with me. But what I'm saying is when you do that, so what I ended up doing, instead of having an expectation, I just keep busy doing, I have a very high expectation of me. And I know that I can count on me. And I know I'll do what I need to do. So that's all I've ever worried about for the last 20 years of my life, is what is Hector doing right now? What is he doing? I never worried what anybody else was doing because I knew a certain percentage weren't going to do anything regardless of what I did. Some of you, if I went and did every appointment with you, you still wouldn't do it. Right? That decision has to come from you, because one of the things I've learned also is that I do not have the capacity to motivate people. I really don't. I never try to motivate people. This weekend's not about motivating you to get busy. This weekend's about sharing information that is proven to be successful so that those of you that are motivated can then take it and go do something with it. It's not to motivate you, because if you're not motivated, I could stay on you. I heard somebody tell me, you need to call my husband. Hey, if I need to call your husband, you got bigger problems than I can help you with. If you need me to stand on your butt to get busy, if your family, your wife, your husband, your children is not enough to motivate you, I'm going to do for you. So I want to talk to you about the 10 laws of life. So we get the first one up here. Are you going to do that for me? Because you either get it or you don't. Hey, this weekend, you either get it or you don't. Some of you are so excited right now. You're bursting out of your skin. You can't wait to get home and implement this stuff and get busy because you got it. And some of you are going, what happened this weekend? What were they talking about? He talks about a story in the book. He says, one of the defining moments for McGraw was, he said, when he was a teenager, he was with some buddies, and they were driving out in the country, right, and they were drinking some beers, right, and the cops pull him over, and the cop says, who was, and they throw all the bottles out, right, and they said, who was drinking? And he grabs the one kid, and he says, listen, you better tell me, I don't want to have to tell you one more time, all right? Tell me who's responsible, right? And the guy gives him a smart answer, right? And boom, he knocks him out. And so he says, well, he got it. He says, I'm going to tell him the truth. The other guy didn't get it. See, he didn't get that the guy was serious. This guy got that he was serious. And that's kind of how it is, right? Some people get it, some people don't. Strategy, become one of those who get it. Next. The number one fear among all people, all of you, the reason most of you won't succeed at Primerica is nothing to do with your ability to do the business. The business is at this point essentially idiot-proof, okay? You could take a relatively sharp 11, 12-year-old, they could do Primerica. Buy term, and this is how hard it is. Buy term, invest difference. Term insurance is a third of the cost of whole life. Be out of debt or be in debt. Save money at 4, 5, 6% or save money at 12, 16, 18%. That's our business. Isn't it? So what's so hard about that, to figure that out? The business is a piece of cake, okay? So it's not that. The thing that holds you back is the fear of rejection. Well, Hopkins will help you with that, you guys. That's why you should go to that. So think of it like this. This is the proof of this statement here. If you were certain that you would never get rejected if you offered the opportunity to somebody, how many more people would you talk to on a daily basis? Huh? John, how many more? A hell of a lot more you're doing right now, right? What about you, Mel? A few more? You'd make an unlimited number of contacts, right? If you had no fear of rejection whatsoever, there's no limit to how many people you'd talk to on any given day. Right, Ralph? None. So what stops you? It's that. How do you get over it? You get better with your technique, and you just do it in spite of the way you feel. That's really that simple. Next. The number one need among all people is acceptance. It really is. People want to be accepted more than anything else. It's the number one need, which is why people usually end up doing what they do. A lot of us, when we're growing up, we hear, you got to be a good person, you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, you got to get a job with a good company that offers benefits, because anything other than that is not really following the track, it's not acceptable, and most of us fell right into that deception, right? Good job with a good company, security, we got to have security, right? The biggest fallacy in our life is that there is such a thing as security. It doesn't exist. Your security, ultimately, is your ability to get results and to produce. If you have an ability to get results and produce, you will always be secure. Totally, it's the most important thing. If you're really good at what you do, you're going to be secure. If you're not, you're going to be insecure. It's really that simple. Next. To manage people effectively, you must do it in a way that protects or enhances their self-esteem. So in other words, when you're talking to somebody, you've always got to make sure that when they leave your presence, they feel better about themselves than when they started. One of the things that I've always done, that I always do, is when I talk to anybody, my number one goal, if you come up to me, and I bet you a lot of you can vouch for it just this weekend, if you come up to me, when you leave, you feel a little bit better about yourself, right? And you know why that is? Because I consciously, when I see you and I make eye contact, that's my number one focus, is to make you feel better about who you are, right? Janae even said that. Did you see that in her talk? She said that. Make people feel special. That's what I think about. When I'm on the telephone with somebody, my number one goal on that call is that they feel better about who they are when they get off the phone. I mean, Cheryl Bartlett, is that what I've done with you? I mean, you're not in my organization, right? I make you feel special when I leave you a voicemail or something? Every single time, right? Chris Howard, I do the same thing. Jim Boland, Carl Blackman, right? Danny Duffy, that's what I do. Right, Martin Flores? That's what I do. Why do I do that? I'll tell you why I do that is because your self-image pretty much how your self-image is predicates what you do. The better you feel about yourself, the more you attempt stuff. The worse you feel about yourself, the less you attempt stuff. It's that simple. People's real issue, folks, I have a degree in psychology. When I went to college, my goal was to become a clinical psychologist. Okay, the reason I wanted to be a clinical psychologist is one of the things that I observed when I was younger and growing up is that most people have very poor self-images. So my purpose in my life at that point, as I was going to school, was to help people improve their self-image. That's all I wanted to do with my life. That was what I decided I was going to do with my life. What ended up happening, I ended up getting in the sales business, and then I got into Primerica. The reason I didn't go into the psychology field is I figured out, once I got a job and stuff, that the only way that I could make any money was to have a PhD, and even then they don't make any money, right? And so that's the reason I didn't go on with that, because I wanted to have a good life, and I didn't want to work for a paycheck. I didn't want to work month to month and maybe take a 1 or 2 week vacation in the year. I wanted to have a real life, okay? So thank God I found Primerica, because Primerica has allowed me to do the very thing that I set out to do initially and get compensated very well at the same time, right? I mean, I've helped a lot of people with their self-image over the years, because that's my purpose. Because, you know, one of the reasons is, how do you keep going, Hector? I mean, you're financially independent many times over. You're making, you know, significant income every year. What keeps you going? What keeps me going is that I have a purpose for my life. My purpose is to help people with their self-image. So every day I get up, I have a job to do. Every day I get up, there's no end in sight with that purpose, right? There's no limit to how many people that I could affect in that way, right? So my job never ends. And the irony of that way of approaching it is, the more people you help, the more income you make. Isn't that something? I've been blessed to choose a profession that, doing what I wanted to do and with my purpose, has allowed me to do that. Hey folks, I get so much more out of these things than anybody ever gets. I'm telling you right now. I know some of you are going to send us some thank you letters. You're going to be affected. And when I read those things, I get a voice tell from somebody, man, this really was awesome. Listen to it. I'm telling you, it's incredible. We get, because of the way I've chosen to live my life, which is to help people, not a day goes by that I don't get a thank you letter, a thank you note, a thank you phone call. I'm telling you, not a day goes by that I don't get some correspondence from somebody thanking me for helping them. Not a day. We save every single one. We have a storage unit that has boxes and boxes and boxes of thank you notes and thank you letters. Literally. And I never get tired of hearing it, okay? So don't stop sending them, all right? But it's a great way to live, see? It's a fabulous way to live. Next. Everybody, and I mean everybody, approaches every situation with at least some concern about what's in it for me. Every one of us, me included, okay? We all do. We're always thinking about every single thing we enter into, what ultimately is in it for me. So if you're not focused, see, when you recruit somebody, okay, let me just tell you a real big key to really growing quickly and really having a lot of success with your people and retaining more people. When you recruit somebody, instead of going, I got to recruit this person so I can get my promotion, I got to recruit this person so I can win the contest to San Diego or to Miami, I got to close the sale so I can get this or that, you need to change that. You need to say, I literally have always done this. Before I went on an appointment, I would say, Lord, would you please help me figure out how to help these people? That's the prayer I would say every time I went into a home. Lord, please help me figure out how to help these people. Not, Lord, help me close this so I can make my car payment or get a promotion or win the contest. I never thought about it like that. I always did that approach. When I recruited somebody, I say, Lord, help me help Chris Howard accomplish what it is he wants to accomplish with his business. Let me find out what he wants and then help me help him do that. And if you approach your life that way, again, the irony is that people will do much better. They'll be appreciative and grateful. They'll do more, and you know what? You'll enjoy yourself more. You'll have more fun with this. It's just a better way to approach it. It just is. Next. Everybody, and I mean everybody, prefers to talk about things that are important to him or her personally. You notice that yet? They have no interest in you. They have all kinds of interest. That's why asking questions, if you notice, God did an incredible thing. He created what? 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. You're supposed to use those things proportionally, okay? You should be asking more questions and listening more, because people really want to talk about themselves. When I would go into someone's home, I am by nature curious. Even when I was a kid, I had an uncle. I still have an uncle. His name's Freddie. And he used to say, you ask too many damn questions. You're always asking questions, right? He used to say that to me, right? because I'm a curious person. And so when I meet somebody, the very first thing I do is I go into the question asking mode. So I'll say, hey, Martin, how you doing? And I start talking to him. Say, I'm Martin Flores. The first thing, so what do you do right now, Martin? He says, I work for Frito-Lay. Oh, is that right? How long have you worked there? I've worked there 6, 7, 8 years. That's fantastic. What do you do exactly? Well, I deliver Fritos. So you're the guy that actually goes in the stores? How does that work? I mean, how do you do that? How do you get space? And I start asking questions, lots of questions. And you know what? I really want to know. It's not just to close a transaction. I'm interested in finding out. But you know why? Because the more I know about what he does, the next time I meet a Frito-Lay guy, I have a bunch of information, right, to say, hey, does your business work like this? I know this guy Martin. He does this and he does that, and he blah, blah, blah. And right away, I find a common ground. Common ground establishes rapport. Rapport is how you get people to go ahead. If I can get them to like me and trust me, we have a basis for moving forward. So I'm very curious. And I think you should be too. One of the things you've got to learn how to do is get outside yourself. Forget about you for now, okay? For the next 5 years, forget about you. Next, people hear and incorporate only what they understand. Like all this stuff, this is especially for the leadership in the room here. People heard a lot of stuff this weekend, okay? If they're newer in the business, a lot of the stuff didn't make sense. So they're not going to incorporate it if they don't understand it. So what you've got to go do now is take that CD-ROM and master all that, get all that stuff down, and then reteach it to them over and over till they understand it, really understand. Like you saw that Carl Blackman thing, which I think was unbelievable, right? So, but you know what? If you saw it once, it looked good, but you don't really understand it yet. You need to study it and really understand it and implement it, which is the best way to understand it. Because until you really understand it and get your people to really understand it, they're not going to incorporate it. You're going to say, here's a CD-ROM, go do it, and you're going to think they're actually going to go do it. They're not. They're not. It's just exactly like when you go field train somebody, you think because you go on a field training sale with somebody that they actually got field trained. It's a huge mistake. Just because you went, because you know, when people see somebody really good do an appointment, for example, the newer person actually think magic took place. I remember I'd go on an appointment and you'd be sitting across the table with somebody and they're like this. You ever have any of those? All right, show me what you got. Right? That happened to me lots of times, okay? So what I would end up doing is I start asking questions and getting them involved and finding out about them and stuff like that. And pretty soon they'd go from that to like this to leaning forward to asking questions, right? The new recruits watching all this happen, they just go, wow, that was unbelievable. How did you do that? Right? And the average person thinks that they understood what I was doing there. And I tell you, one of the reasons I've been successful is I understood that they didn't understand what they were seeing. And so after the appointment, I would sit down with them. I'd say, okay, let's walk through what happened here. Let me tell you what my strategy was. Let me tell you why I asked this question. Do you remember when they said this, I said that? The reason I said this here is because I was trying to elicit that response. And you see, I got that response, and then when I did this, and I go step by step by step by step by step by step, and explain exactly what I did. So they knew exactly what I was thinking about and why I was asking the question and what response I was trying to elicit. And when I got that response, what do you do next and what do you say next and how do you say it and what's the tonality and everything, leaving nothing to chance. And you know what? A lot of you don't do that because that's boring to do. And that costs you a fortune. A fortune. Next, people like, trust, and believe those who like them. Hey, I like people. I just do. I'm so blessed that I was raised in a family. My parents are incredible people. My dad has the best people skills of any human being I've ever met. Honestly. I mean, you should see my dad work a room. He's unbelievable. Everyone loves my dad. I mean, they just do, because he just has that way about making people feel special, and he's just incredible. And people like and trust because he likes people. And I learned And you might come from a family where your parents aren't very sociable, or they didn't really like people, or they mistrusted people, or you know what I mean? They're talking about people. I don't know. I didn't come from that. My family never talked about anybody. There wasn't any prejudice in my family. There wasn't any talking about other people. There wasn't any of that. My parents were completely positive. They didn't even know that they're supposed to be positive. They just were positive. When I said I was going to do something, they didn't ever say, "Oh, you can't do that." They didn't do any of that stuff. But no, I know a lot of you aren't that fortunate. You got to learn to like people, because people like and trust and believe those who like them. And if you don't like people, this isn't the business for you. You need to go into working for the government. Next. People often do things for other than apparent reasons. Lots of times you're going to see people do things and it's going to go, what is wrong with these people? Right? You ever had that? Like, why would they do that? They do things for other than apparent reasons, and there's no way of knowing that. Don't get boggled down by that. Next. Even people of quality can be and often are petty and small. I've seen it happen a lot. People that you think are very respected in our company or people respected in your communities can be very petty and very small. That's just human nature, folks. Don't be worried about that. I tell you, one of the things that my hero in my life, other than my parents, is a guy named John Wooden. John Wooden, in my opinion, is simply the greatest basketball coach in the history of the sport. Some people think it's Dean Smith, right? But they're wrong, okay? Because Dean Smith didn't win 10 out of 12 national championships and didn't even come close. And Dean Smith didn't have winning streaks of 80-some games. He didn't do that. But John Wooden did. And John Wooden was a greater man than he was a basketball coach, which is why I really respect him. He has a new book coming out, by the way, that you probably ought to buy. You got to read all his stuff. I have patterned my entire business philosophy after They Call Me Coach. My whole business philosophy, if you read that book, you're going to read Hector Lamarck, Business Philosophy, or How to Build a Business, and reading that book. That's what I patterned it after. I read that book maybe 10 times. I was a guy, when I was a kid growing up, I had a basketball Jones, right? And I used to watch UCLA basketball on Friday and Saturday night. It used to be on Channel 5 or Channel 11 at 11 o'clock at night every Friday and Saturday night. I never missed those basketball games during that time period. So, next. Everybody, and I mean everybody, wears a social mask. You must look beyond the mask to see the person. People are afraid of being themselves, because when people are themselves, people are not very forgiving, okay? So you know what? Sometimes people have, this, like maybe they have this armor of being really tough, and, nobody's really that tough. Even those of you that act tough and that you don't get affected, everybody gets affected. There's not one of you that doesn't get affected by somebody saying a slight about you or somebody ignoring you, or every one of you does. Everybody does. So you got to look past that. Hey, folks, we're all the same. You know, the mistake you make is that you think we're different. That's really one of the biggest mistakes that people make, that we think we're different from other people, but we're not. We're not different. We're all the same. We all want essentially the same things. We want to have great relationships. We want our people that are close to us to be proud of us. We want to do something significant with our life. We want our life to have purpose and meaning. We want to have fun. We want to laugh. We want to have whatever, right? Everybody wants the same things. There's not a person in this room that doesn't want most of those things. Am I right or wrong? Okay? So then really, if your skin's different, your sex is different, or whatever, you're not different. You're the same. Your mistake is that you think you're different. Next. You create your own experience. Acknowledge and accept accountability for your life. This is law 2. You do create your own experience. You've created your own experience, and you will create your own experience. A lot of times I was saying this to some people. People ask me often, did you ever think you were going to have this many people at a meeting? Or did you ever think you were going to make, $300,000 a month? Did you ever think? And I go, and People want you to say, oh no, oh, I'm so grateful. I never thought that would happen to me. I totally knew it was going to happen. I totally expected it. Everything I did, everything I chose was to create this. This is not an accident. And folks, I'm not being arrogant. I chose this, just like you've chosen what you have. How did I choose it? Well, see, over the last 20 years, I chose to read over 1,000 books on leadership, sales, personal relationships. I chose to attend countless seminars. I chose to invest time in my car, not listening to the radio, but listening to the tapes that would enhance my skill level. I chose how to spend my time over the last 20 years different than most of you chose. So by choosing that, I chose this. That wasn't something that any of you could do that. What I've done is not special or extraordinary. Anybody could choose that. You didn't choose it. That's the only difference between you and I. I know people don't like to hear that because people want to think there's a level of luck to your life. It's bull. There is no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. That's luck. That's what it is. And you know how that's true? Like some of you, when you were really bad when you first got started and you try to recruit somebody, you couldn't recruit them, right? And now that you're better, right, Martin? Now you're recruiting people. That luck? No. You spent the last 3 or 4 years working on your skill level's up, so now when you meet somebody, you recruit them. There's no luck there. Greg Gunn, where are you at? Greg Gunn's making big money now, right? Hey, I don't want you for a second to think any of it's luck, buddy. You chose it. By what you've chosen, how you chose to hold those accountability things, you chose to personally produce, you chose to lead from the front, you chose a lot of things over the last 36 months, right? Those choices is what created what you have going in your business right now. If you keep making the choices, it'll just keep expanding. If you make the choices that you were doing previously, it'll go the other direction. It's that simple. There's no luck involved. God blessed you with the ability to choose. He didn't bless you with giving you that stuff. God doesn't give you anything. He gives you choice, and you can choose it. Accept and acknowledge accountability for your life. Understand your role in creating the results of your life. Learn to choose better so you can have better. Next. You are now, this is very good. You are now accountable. You have always been accountable. You will always be accountable. That is how it is. That may not be how you want it to be, but that's how it is. Next. You will never fix the problem blaming someone else. That is for losers. Don't be a sucker just because it hurts to admit the truth. You're the one screwing it up. If anybody is, the sooner you accept that, the sooner your life gets better. Let's face it, no matter who you might want to blame. Next. This is pretty tough, huh? You made the choice. Next. You said the words. Next. You settled too cheap. You wanted the kids. You treat yourself like dirt. You wanted the damn dog. You married them. You chose those feelings. You decided you weren't worth it. You quit. You sold out on your dreams. You chose the job. You let them treat you like dirt. You bought the damn thing. You ate it. You let them talk you into it. You asked her. You believed them. To accept and acknowledge this law is to strip yourself of what may well be your number one coping strategy in life. Folks, if I leave you with anything today, well, that's the most important thing, that you choose everything. Your life can be whatever you want it to be. That's the exciting thing about your life. And it doesn't matter what's transpired before either. I don't care what you did or didn't do, what your educational background is, whether you're shy before. Being shy is the reason anyone's shy is a lack of self-confidence. I was shy. The only reason I was shy, I lacked self-confidence. So I fixed that, so I'm not shy anymore. It's that simple. Next. I didn't say you're to blame. I said you're accountable. This is important. As in responsible, there's a huge difference between blame and responsibility. To deserve blame, you must have intended your actions or recklessly disregarded their consequences. Next. By contrast, your responsibility simply means that you were in control. Accountability or responsibility does not imply intent or recklessness. It says that only that you did or allowed to be done whatever led to the outcome. Next. Third law. People do what works. People do what works. Always have, always will, right? Next. Your strategy. Identify the payoffs that drive your behavior and that of others. Control the payoffs to control your life. It's very good here. Regardless of the logic, if I'm repeatedly doing whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm getting a payoff. So like some of you are repeatedly not recruiting people, you're repeatedly not getting results, you're repeatedly not doing the things you need to do, you're getting a payoff somewhere there. Even as sick as a payoff might be to anybody looking on the outside, there is some sort of a payoff. You need to figure out what it is and then deal with it. I will not delude myself by thinking it is not so. If I search, I will find the payoff because it is there. I'm not getting paid off for some of my patterns of behavior. I'm getting paid off for all of them. Every time. I'm not an exception because there are no exceptions. Next. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. It's very true, like I said about the alcoholism thing, right? Your strategy. Get real with yourself about your life and everybody in it. Be truthful about what isn't working in your life. Stop making excuses and start making results. Let me just tell you something. I read this, so excuse my language. But you've heard the saying, money talks and bullshit walks, right? You ever heard that before? It's because it's true. That's a truism. Results count and nothing else matters, really. Results done with integrity, okay? Because no one cares about your intentions. This says in here somewhere, okay? A lot of you think because your intentions are good that that's enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. If you're trying to assess why you're failing to achieve your goals, you must not give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You must not allow yourself excuses. You must live and think by the life laws covered so far. Specifically, you must acknowledge that whatever circumstance is, it did not happen by accident. No excuses. You own it. You created it. Next. Life rewards action. This is really, I talked about this Friday night, okay? Life rewards action. It doesn't reward being smart. Let me just tell you, this is the proof here of the statement. Who are the most successful people in my organization? Rick Susie. Rick right now is rolling 12 income is $1,500,000. He barely graduated from high school. He cheated his way through high school. He was a caddy when he came out to California from Ohio. And he's my number one guy. Number two guy, two couple right now, is Marque and Sue Younger. Neither one of them are college graduates. In the first year in the business, they were so bad it hurt to watch them. Okay? They're at $1,200,000 right about there right now. Chris Howard, $1 million. High school graduate. School was never that important to you, right, Chris? He was an athlete. He was a competitor, but school was not an important thing. But he's making $1 million a year. You didn't go to college. You didn't college at all? No college, right? Gary McCrummon. Well, enough said, right? I mean, he didn't go to college either, right? He was a liquor deli manager of Vons. My top 4 most successful people have 0 college education. All multimillionaires, all financially independent. Huh? What does that tell you, smart people? It's not what you know, it's what you do. It's never what you know, it's always what you do. I'll take a doer, I'll teach him what to do. I don't need you to know a lot right now. I need you to be coachable and do what I tell you to do. If you do what... Look, I can give you a guarantee. If you would do everything I told you to do, you would make $1 million a year. Slam dunk. The challenge is, I've gotten 4 people to do that so far. Actually, a couple of people outside my hierarchy are doing a lot of things. I have more people outside my hierarchy that do it. I tell them to do than the people in my hierarchy, which is crazy. Okay, the whole thing about a person can't be a prophet in their own land is unbelievably true. Okay. Okay, make careful decisions and pull the trigger. Learn that the world couldn't care less about thoughts without actions. It's really true, right? Well done is better than well said, according to Ben Franklin. Next. The responses and the results that you receive from anyone in any situation are triggered by the stimuli you provide. The stimuli are your behavior. So what you do, the stimulus you put out there, determines what people do. So you got to watch that. Next. This is the only way people can get to know you and decide whether to reward or punish you. If you behave in a purposeless, meaningless, non-constructive way, you will get inferior results and you will be punished. If you behave in a purposeful, meaningful, constructive ways, you get superior results. That is how you create your own experience. This isn't too deep for you guys, is it? I mean, you know what I'm getting at here? Next. When you choose the behavior, the action, you choose the consequence. The better the choices, the better the results, but the bottom line is that if you do nothing, you get nothing. Let me give you a perfect example. This is the talk I had with my children when they were younger. Okay, and I would suggest if you have younger children, even if you have older children, I'd still have this talk to them. And I had a couple of talks. Anybody have kids that are about to drive cars? That's an exciting time in your life, right? This is the talk I had with my kids right before they started to drive a car. I sat them down and I said, look, Dak and Janae, one of the things that I've learned in my life, that every single choice we make has a consequence. Even when you don't make a choice, you're making a choice, by the way. Okay? So every choice we make has a consequence. And so what you've got to do is you've got to determine, am I going to be okay with the consequence of the choice? That should dictate what you choose to do, right? If you're going to feel good about it after the fact. For example, you're going to drive cars. Of course, we don't want you to drink. You're not young enough, but you know what? I'm not an ostrich, right? I don't have my head buried in the sand. When kids start getting out, they experiment. I know none of you did, okay? Right? But that's what kids mostly do. So I said, look, the one thing that's going to happen is you may have friends and you may go to a party and whatever, and there may be alcohol or, God forbid, drugs. That's not something I ever want to have to experience with you. But the fact is, if you drink and you drive, there's a consequence. What I want you to think about before you do that is, if you drink and then you drive, can you live with a consequence of potentially getting in an accident or running over a pedestrian and killing another person? Could you live with the feeling about killing another person because of your choice that you made there? What do you think they say? Well, no. Well, then, what does that mean you should do in terms of a choice then? That means you should choose not to drink and drive. I said, that's right. So if that ever happens, what will you do then? Well, we'll call you. Okay, great. Or call a cab. I'll pay for the cab. But I don't ever want you to make that choice if you can't live with the consequence. And by the way, and I did the same thing with their studies, right? Because, kids are growing up. I told my kids as they were growing up, Jan and I did, we said, look, your job is to get superior results, great grades. That's your job. You don't have to do, we're comfortable financially, so you don't have to do a lot of things. Your job is to do well academically. My job is to make sure you have a roof over your head, clothing on your back, and food in your belly. I'm going to do my job. I expect you to do your job. That's all you've got to do. So, and I don't care if you get A's or B's or C's, but I expect ones on effort. Maybe you can't grasp the material and you end up getting a C or a B, but when I see what the effort was, I want to see a 1 there, because I don't really ever care what the grade is. I only care what the effort is, because if the effort is always there, the results will be fine down the road. That's all I care about, is the effort. Because if you do the effort, right, if you make the right choices, and so like both of them did very well academically. My daughter ended up getting into, she goes to Stanford University up in Palo Alto. Very difficult to get into Stanford. The year that she went in there, I think there was 18,000 applicants. They accepted like 600, okay? Very competitive. And she got there because she made all the right choices. Where do you think she got that from? Because we talked about it. Not only did we talk about it, we lived it, which is even going one better, right? And that's what you've got to do. Your behavior you choose. Next. People don't care about your intentions, they care about what you do, and that goes double for your family. Your wife or your husband, your kids could give a crap if you struggle, or that you got rejected 10 times this week, or that you had a dark house, or that nobody showed up to the op meeting, or that you got to try. They don't care.
Jan ever cared that I had to work like a crazy person and I was driving up to Santa Maria 3 hours and doing an op meeting and nobody shows up, and I drive back at 11 o'clock and had to stop at a Denny's and sleep in a parking lot and then come back and do a meeting? She didn't care that I flew up to Sacramento and to train the people up in Sacramento, and I slept on Dave Harrison's couch two nights a week and did op meetings at home and drove all over and did that 11 straight weeks, right? Did we close any business? Did we make any money? Are we going to be okay? Can we pay our bills? That was the primary. And that's not bad. That's not a problem. That's the way it is. And I wasn't well, you don't understand how hard I'm working. I'm really trying. They don't give a crap about how hard you're working and how hard you're trying. They only care about results. Right, partner? Huh? All right? Next. The formula for taking personal action goes like this: be, do, have. What the formula says is be committed, do what it takes, you will have what you want. Next. You can know 100-fold more today than you know a week ago, but if you don't do anything about it, then you aren't any more effective than you were last week in your unenlightened state. Next, we're going to go quick here. Until knowledge, awareness, insights, understanding are translated into action, they are of no value. Next. If someone knows he is standing on your foot yet does nothing about it, your foot is still bruised, isn't it? If a doctor knows why you're dying yet does nothing about it, you're still dead. Okay? If you know why your marriage is failing yet you do nothing about it, your marriage still fails. If you know why you're continuing to be frustrated and depressed in your life yet you do nothing about it, you continue to be frustrated and depressed. Life rewards action, not intention, not insight, not wisdom, and not understanding. The difference between winners and losers is that winners do things losers don't want to do. Notice the word do in that statement. People take that purposeful, meaningful action. They don't plan themselves to death. They don't have a meeting to plan a meeting, to set up a meeting, to decide what to do. There comes a time when you have to pull the trigger. To have what you want, you have to do what it takes. Recall the biblical warning that faith without deeds is of no value. There's no reality, only perception. This is big. Identify the filters through which you view the world and acknowledge your history without being controlled by it. Next. This is a law so profound that it determines whether or not you are happy, satisfied, at peace. Accepting this law means that you embrace the fact that no matter what happens in your life, how you interpret that event is up to you, completely up to you. Next. Whatever meaning or value a particular circumstance has for that, it will be the meaning or value you give it. To appreciate how this law works, you need to understand the difference between sensation and perception. When light waves are received by your eyes or sound waves by your ears, that is sensation, the phenomenon of stimuli being received by your sense organs. Perception, on the other hand, is your organizing and interpreting of those sensations. Perception is the level at which you assign meaning to the sensations you receive from the world. Give you an example, okay? You and I go see a movie. Let's take The Matrix. How many of you seen The Matrix? Anybody seen The Matrix? Oh, good, a lot of you. All right? I talked to somebody that's a good friend of mine. I said, "Do you see The Matrix?" And they go, "Yeah." I said, "What'd you think?" And they said, "Well, it was all right." And I'm going, "What? That movie was awesome." I mean, I don't know. If you saw that movie and you didn't get the spiritual part of that movie and the message that you are who you believe you are and that you are capable of doing anything, then you missed the whole point of that movie, in my opinion. Right? So he saw it, he said, "That's all right," and I saw it, and I was so inspired by that movie, I can't tell you, right? I bought the DVD, I've seen that movie like 3 or 4 times. Especially at the end when he gets shot, right, and he falls down and he's dying, and all of a sudden he figures out who he is, right? And then he just gets back up, and then he goes, like, starts dodging the bullets and stops them and all that stuff, right? See, that's you. A lot of you, you're that character. But you still don't realize who you are right now. You still think you're not who God intended you. You still think you're not worthy. You still think you're not capable. You still think you're not enough. You still think you're wrong. You are enough. You've always been enough. And you know inside in your heart of hearts you've always been enough, and there's more for you. Next. Well, the observation that beauty is in the eye of the beholder recognizes that your perception may be vastly different than mine. Both of us can look at the same picture. I might like it. You might hate it. The same holds true with each and every event in your life. Counteracting limiting beliefs. It is essential to identify that your limiting beliefs so that they can, when they rear their ugly head, you can recognize and react to it. Next. Here are some typical examples. I'm really just not very smart. Some of you think that. Some of you actually think that. You think I'm just not as good as the people I'm competing with. Some of you think that. I've never come out on top. No matter how good things start out, something always ruins my efforts. I can't change just who I am. I don't have the family background to be what I really want to be. I've never been able to do it before. Why get my hopes up now? If I can get too happy or relaxed, something will go wrong. Some of you are depressed this weekend because you're seeing all this success and you're going, man, I've never been able to do it. Why should I get my hopes up now? This is another one of those things that's giving me false hope. That's bull, okay? If people really knew how much of the time I was faking it, I would really be in trouble. If I tried to change it, it would just upset other people. It's selfish of me to spend so much time and energy on me. I don't deserve a second chance. Root out all and record all the self-perceptions that hold you back. Go on alert, determined to unmask the self-defeating beliefs. Getting rid of them is a key step in a good, solid life strategy. Whatever the message is, such beliefs lead to rigid thinking, rigid behavior, and both of which threaten your future and your ability to control it. You can be anything you want to be. If you fail to address them right now, if you allow yourself to be misguided with them, you will compromise your opportunity for the life you dream of. And you will, because you won't attempt, you won't try. Life is managed, not cured. Learn to take charge of your life. Hold on. This is a long ride, and you're the driver every single day. Next. Simply put, never in your life are you without problems and challenges. You know that if everything is calm and peaceful in one area, such as your home, there's likely to be challenge and turmoil in the workplace or vice versa. A long-established fact of psychological functioning is that it's not so much the particular circumstance that upsets the person involved as it is the violation of his or her expectations, which I talked about earlier. You can help yourself to a life manager if your expectancy set about life is realistic rather than naive. Understand that success is a moving target, that in an ever-changing world, your life must be actively managed. This is great. Make no mistake, you are a life manager. Your objective is to manage your life in a way that generates high-quality results. If you're not doing a very good job, then you need to wake up and get on the ball. You may not be the only client you have, particularly if your family includes children, people who act like children. Ha, ha, ha. But you are your most important client. This is very important here. As your own client, you must treat yourself with great care and manage yourself with understanding that you are a very important person. In fact, you're the most important person in your life. This is going to, that statement rubs a lot of people the wrong way, because they've been told their whole life other people are more important than them. That's not true. You're the most important person in your life. You always have been and you always will be. And let me tell you why. Don't apologize for that should you believe that you're selfish. Next. You are the only partner or parent or spouse your children have, aren't you? If you take care of yourself, you have something to give in those two important roles. If you choose instead to be a martyr, if you choose constantly self-sacrifice, and do not take care of yourself, then you may not be there physically or emotionally when they need you the most. If you do not make deposits into your personal account along the way, you may find yourself emotionally and physically bankrupt at some point in the future when the people you love are most in need of you. Your motivation for taking care of yourself is the best interest of everyone you love. And it's really true. I like to golf. You know why golf? Because golf to me, and I meditate too. I meditate every day. But I golf and I meditate. Both of those things, for me, serve the same function. It's a chance for me to get back, take care of myself, take a break, think about what I'm doing, think about where I'm going, re-energize myself so that I can be a better husband, a better father, a better leader to my organization. Because if I don't take time for myself, I get burnt out, right? Just like you do. And so it's very critical. I work out, I do things for myself, take care of myself so that I can be more giving. There's nothing selfish about that. In fact, it's the exact opposite of being selfish. It's really the right thing to do. Next. Okay, life law number 8. We teach people how to treat us. Boy, is that ever true. This is your strategy. You need to own rather than complain about how people treat you. You learn to renegotiate your relationships to have what you want. Because people learn by results, whether or not you reward, accept, or validate their behavior impacts their conduct and will influence their subsequent choices. How you interpret and react to their behavior determines whether or not they are likely to repeat it. You therefore actively participate in defining your relationships. So if you ever wonder why people treat you the way they do, see life law number 3. People do, it works. And so what happens, they do what they do because you've taught them based on results which behavior gets a payoff and which ones don't. If they get what they want, they keep that behavior in their repertoire. If they do not get their desired result, they drop that behavior and they acquire a new one immediately. Understand that as in all areas of your life, results, not intentions, influence the people with whom you interact. I give you a perfect example. Like in Primerica, a lot of people get a lot of negative feedback from their family when they're getting started. When I first got started, and I talked to my parents about going full time, they were not positive. They didn't want me to do that, and they thought I was nuts because I had a good job and all that. So as a result, they tried to dissuade me from doing that. And I told my parents, I said, look, if you want me to come visit you, you can't be negative. You just can't, or else I can't come here anymore. So you need to decide if you want me to visit, you got to stop that. If you don't, then I'm not going to come and visit you anymore. So in other words, they did it as long as it was okay. They kept up that behavior. As soon as they found out that behavior wasn't going to be viable for them, they stopped it, and they never come. From that point on, I never heard a negative thing from my parents. In 17 years. So it's really, really important to do that. You may complain or cry or threaten to give them negative results, but if the bottom line is that you reward the behavior by providing a response that the other person values, and that person decides, hey, this works, I now know how to get what I want. And kids do that too. Kids do that all the time. So to us and our spouses. So you've got to be real clear about how you let people treat you. If the people in your life treat you in an undesirable way, you're going to want to figure out what you're doing to reinforce, elicit, or allow that treatment. Because I guarantee you that it's happening because you're allowing it to happen. You're giving something to that individual that reinforces why they should do it. Therefore, if you don't like the deal, don't blame just your partner. You have ownership of that relationship just as much as he or she does. Now, life law number 9. There's power in forgiveness. Your strategy: open your eyes to what anger and resentment are doing to you. Take your power back from those who have hurt you. This is a quote from Ben Franklin: whatever is begun in anger ends in shame. And that's really true. Of all the emotions in the human repertoire, hate, anger, and resentment are among the most powerful and self-destructive. They are awakened by the actions of those you perceive to have hurt you or those you love. You may believe that they deserve it and are made to suffer by your hatred of them. You may sometimes treat your hatred as though it was a mythical curse on the target of your disdain. But to do so is to carry and feel that hatred is to pay an unbelievably high price, for the reality is that those feelings change who you are, they change your heart, and they change your mind. I mean this in the most literal sense. For every thought and for every feeling, there is a physiological reaction. These kinds of reactions are never more evident than when you are feeling these powerful negative emotions. When you harbor hatred, anger, and resentment, your body's chemical balance is dramatically disrupted. And the other thing it does to you, it disrupts your body, it creates illness, it creates a lot of physical ailments. It also creates a lack of energy because it's such a draining thing. Your fight or flight responses stay aroused 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means that hatred, anger, and resentment are absolutely incompatible with your peace, joy, and relaxation. And what ends up happening, most of us, feel this way because of our expectations. We have an expectation that people should behave a certain way or do certain things, and when they don't, fulfill our expectations, we get angry. One of the keys to being really happy is not having expectations of people. Have expectations of yourself because you can control yourself, but you cannot control what other people do. So to the extent that these powerful emotions crowd their more positive counterparts out of your experience, your physical state is going to be miserable. You have to, life law number 10, you have to name it to claim it. Your strategy, you've got to get clear about what you want and take your turn. Why not you? Why does it always have to be someone else that lives in the great house, that drives a great car, that takes the great vacations, that has a happy family, that has prosperity, right? I always wanted to be somebody, but I should have been more specific. That's Lily Tomlin and Jane Wagner. So you've got to be specific about what you want. You've got to know exactly in minute detail what you're trying to accomplish with your life, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to be. I'm convinced that if the mythical genie ever did pop out of the bottle and say, "Tell me your wish," most people would stutter, stammer, and be in a terrible conflict about what to ask for.
not knowing precisely what you want is not okay. It's just simply not okay. This life law means that what it says in its most basic sense, if you cannot name with great specificity what it is that you want, then you will never be able to step up and claim it. And a lot of people are in Primerica, and they aren't clear about why they're here and what they're trying to accomplish. And as a result, they waver and they can't stay focused because they don't know what they're even doing it for. And you've got to know exactly. I tell you, Jan and I had a goal. We knew exactly what we were trying to do. This was our goal. Our goal was to accumulate $500,000 in liquid cash or investments in 5 years, because at that point in my life, I was living on $50,000 a year. So I thought that if I could accumulate $500,000 in cash, that at 10%, that would give me $50,000. That would make me financially independent. So everything that I did from that point forward, was geared around building our business, recruiting people, developing a sales force, developing people, doing a lot of sales so that we can increase our cash flow, so that we can accomplish that goal. So what we did is we had a plan, a 5-year plan. We put everything on the back burner except our family and God. And I mean everything. I used to play competitive tennis. I used to play tournament tennis. We used to like to do a lot of different things that for that 5 or 6 year period, I didn't do them. Everything I did, how I spent my free time was all geared around spending time with my teammates and developing personal relationships and spending time with people to train them and teach them and get them competent so that they could be productive and successful on their own, because of course that would lead to more success for us. And so we just made a conscious effort that if it didn't have to do with building our Primerica business, we simply did not do it. And when you're doing anything, you can ask the question, is this going to help me move my business forward or not? And if it's not, you probably shouldn't do it. And if it does, you should do it. And that's not a complicated way to build your business. So let me tell you what the result of that focus was. And a lot of you might say, well, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, let me show you the result. Our first full year, 84, our cash flow was $18,000. Our second year in 1985, it was $35,000. Our third year was 1986 was $86,000, and then our fourth year, 1987, it jumped up to $409,000. Our income went from $7,000 a month to about $33,000 a month. Well, that's when things started to change. This is also a time when most people would say they start buying a big house, they buy nice cars, they start doing a lot of things to spend that money. But what we did is we stayed in our same house. I had a $1,200 a month house payment. I had one car payment. My business was costing me about $3,000 a month to run at that time, and so we needed about $6,000 or $7,000 a month to live on. But we were making $33,000 and saving all the difference. And the next year in '88, my cash flow jumped to $855 because instead of focusing on buying things, I focused on building my business and exploding my business and getting wider and recruiting more directs and training more directs. And my single-minded focus was recruit and field train directs. My income jumped to $855. That year to $70,000 a month. My payments, my car payments and my house payments were still, and my business was about $6,000 or $7,000 a month. I was making $70,000 a month. We saved everything, and what ended up happening, we met our goal. Actually, I exceeded my goal. I was able to save in excess of $800,000, became financially independent, and now we could concentrate fully on simply helping people and seeing how big we could grow our business. And that's all we've been doing since I think it's 1992. Since 1992, we've been financially independent, and it's just been incredible. I think it was 92, 91. Actually, since 1988, I've been financially independent. That's not accurate. 1988. So since that time, 11 years, 12 years, been financially independent, and then we could just focus on having fun with the business. And every one of you can do that if you just make the conscious effort. You live by these 10 laws. I promise you can't go wrong. You're going to have tons of success. You're going to have a great life. You're going to separate and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there. There is no competition when you do all the right things.
You've heard this statement, life is not a dress rehearsal. If I could give you any one thing, and I say this a lot, and I'm going to keep saying it a lot until people get it, okay, is that being successful is very, very simple. There's nothing complicated about making a lot of money. A lot of you think making big money is some abstract, hard thing to do that only a few people can accomplish, and I'm probably not cut out for it, and all that. Right? Not true. Folks, I come from a background, I'm a Mexican Catholic, okay? And we have gigantic, I'm a fifth of seven, big family. My mom has big family. We have tons of cousins and uncles and aunts and nieces and all that, right? And that big family, there's never one person in my family that I may be wrong, but I don't know of anybody other than me that ever graduated from college and got a degree. At this point, we have some that are in school and doing that right now, but I'm the first one, okay? I'm the first one that really ever started and built a real successful business. No one that I know of, I'm aware of in my family, ever did that before. Okay? I'm the first. So I could have used the same excuse everybody is, well, no one's ever done it, I don't have an example, I don't have a mentor, it's not cut out, it's not in the cards for a Marque, to be successful in business, and I should just be happy I have a pretty good job, and I have a house, and I'm taking care of my family, and blah, 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 right? And just rationalize my life away. I could have done that. That would have been very easy, and nobody would have been upset, and it would have been just cool, right? But you know what? I didn't do that. I said, when I was in high school, when I was 16, 17-year-olds, one of my best friends in high school was a guy named Chris Lewis. Chris Lewis was black. We were like this, man. We hung out. We did all kinds of stuff together. We used to do something that was really unusual, right? Chino is a small town. And we used to, on Friday or Saturday night, we used to drive into Westwood. We used to do that all the time. He had this green beat-up Volkswagen. I didn't have a car in high school. And we'd drive into Westwood, and we'd go have dinner at this place called Alice's Restaurant. Anybody ever eat at Alice's Restaurant? We used to go there. He had a friend that worked there, and we used to go and eat there. And then we would go and drive his VW, right? You got to picture this. A black kid and a Mexican kid in a beat-up Volkswagen riding through Beverly Hills and Brentwood and Westwood. Okay? We didn't get stopped one time. Can you believe that? And I used to think to myself when I was, 16, 17, 18-year-old, and I'd see these mansions and all this success, right? All these external things of success. I used to go see that, and I would think to myself, I'd go, self, these people were not all born into wealth, because this country's like 200 years old, right? So they couldn't all have possibly been born into all this incredible wealth. Someone in that family, somewhere, made a decision to do it, right? Somebody. And that individual in that family is what created that. So they figured out what it is you have to do. So if someone else figured it out, then why couldn't I figure it out? Right? If I ask enough questions, if I look deeply enough, if I study, and I figure out what these successful people have done, and I just do what they did, then I have a shot at doing what they did. Did that make any sense to any of you, or am I the only nut here? See, that made sense to me. That was common sense to me. So I made a decision back there that I was going to do that. Then when I was in college, my best friend in college was this guy named Drager Sakota. He's from South Africa. We played on a tennis team together. And he had two other brothers, actually cousins. They were cousins. And his family, actually I had two really good friends. His family owned all of the meat, cows, slaughterhouse, and distribution for the meat in South Africa. And he had a lot of money. And their trips would be like going skiing in Aspen on the break, or go to Las Vegas, and they had a Porsches. That's what they drove, and they were all well. And I was broke, right? I was cutting hair to make $5, $2, $3, or $4 so I could have a little money, right? And washing tennis courts. But they were really good friends. We played tennis together, right? And then I had another buddy I played basketball, because I played basketball in college too, and his name was Kenji Sano. Kenji's dad owned 7 restaurants and nightclubs in Tokyo, and he was rich too. My two good buddies in college were both wealthy. You know what I found out about them? They were just like me. They were just like me. They weren't any different. Matter of fact, I was a much better athlete than both of them. And then I said, you know what? If these guys did it, why can't I? See, that's the question you should be asking. If Jim Bowen did it, why can't I? If Chris Howard did it, I mean, you heard Jim, right? Jim goes to my house, doesn't recognize anything. He thought he was on Mars, right? If these people did it, why can't I? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Don't say, why can't I do it? Don't talk about why, but why can you? How can you? I promise you, this is the thing I'll promise you. I am completely 100% committed, and so is Jan, to keep leading from the front. I'm not tired. Do I look tired to you? Do I look like I'm beat up? I'm not. I'm energized. I'm excited. I tell you, when you get to the point where your money's not an issue anymore, you can focus on the things you love to do instead of the things you have to do. The things you have to do is right now, but there will be a point in your life when you can do the things you want to do. And that's the time when you're really going to start having some fun, buddy. You're going to live. So I want you to go away, and I want you to know that you can do whatever you choose to do. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be challenging. You're going to have rejection. You're going to have dark houses. You're going to stumble a little bit. Your skill level may not be up to snuff right away, but you got to believe that you keep on getting better. You're going to get better. And you know what? One last thing. One thing I figured out is everyone's not stupid. Just seems like it sometimes, okay? You ask enough people, somebody's going to say, that's awesome. I want to do that. That looks incredible. I love what you're doing. That's what I've been looking for my whole life. You're going to find those people. So what you're doing here is we're looking for people that are looking for us. That's all you're doing. Ralph, you're just looking for people that are looking for you, buddy. That's all. And if you do that enough, and you really come from the right place where you're trying to help them and you care about them, and you make that how you live your life, this is a can't-miss thing. This is the best time ever. My dream for you is that you get to experience it what Jan and I have experienced. And my commitment to you and Jan's commitment to you is that we're going to keep sending the message, doing things like this, giving, because I feel obligated. I sold the dream to a lot of you personally. And I consider myself a person of integrity, a person of my word, and I'm not going to let up till everybody that I've personally got involved, they make it. And you know what? There's a lot of people here that I personally recruited, I personally filtered, that aren't doing as well as they could be doing. And I want you to know, even though we don't communicate as much as we used to communicate, that I'm not stopping, and I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. And I just want you to know that I'm here to help you. I'm a phone call away. I'll get with you. I'll help you. Those of you that call me, you know that's true. I commit that to you. My life that's what it's about. That's all it's going to be about from now to the end. So let's do that. But you know what, you leaders that are starting to get it going right now, I can't do it alone, Greg Gunn. I need you to be that guy in Oklahoma. Jerry Ward, I need you to, in Bush, I need you to be those people in Texas. Chris Howard is already that person in Nevada and Utah. Kevin Zirk, I need you to be that person in Arizona. Lynn and Martin, I need you to be that person in the Bay Shop. Hey, it's your time. Barry Andershak, I need you to be that person in Canada. You've been blessed. You've been blessed. You guys have been blessed. Go share it. Go share it. Let's go make this the most exciting, thrilling life of all time. Love you. Tear it up. We'll see you next time.